Is it just we're connecting that and other people are connecting that, or was that the idea? You know, he'll probably never tell us,
He probably won't.
and I respect him for it.
Mate, I was so obsessed with this film. I bought the screenplay, right? And I read the screenplay like relentlessly until it was on DVD. And the crazy thing was, I went to all the places, and this was the one time where Inception was sold out. I couldn't get a copy of this film. And Sarah was so wonderful. She literally wrapped it up, and I came home. It wasn't like a birthday or anything. She just knew how crazy I was for this film. She used to call me an Inceptionist, which is hilarious. And on my bed, there was like a little present wrapped, and I unwrapped it, and it was Inception. She'd got a copy of it. It was like the Willy Wonka golden ticket, and I was like, oh my God. She was just amazing. Like, it was so sweet of her that she just knew.
Welcome to another spoiler review episode.
Welcome back to our spoiler review episodes. This time we discuss the 2010 Christopher Nolan masterpiece, Inception. This is a much more cerebral and intense movie than we've been used to in recent years. This movie changed event blockbusters forever and raised the bar for everyone. Enjoy. Thanks for returning. Today is our another spoiler review. I hope you guys are enjoying these reviews. Me and Drew especially are really enjoying these. James is as well, but he doesn't manage to see as many of the newer ones. But today, luckily, we're going to be talking about an older film. Not that old, but a little while ago. And it's going to be Inception, the Christopher Nolan film. Probably the one that, after Batman, kind of was the one that put him on the map for doing more cerebral movies, I guess, not your just standard action films.
Well, dude, it put Hardy on the map as well, technically, because even though Hardy did loads of movies before that, when people go, oh, Tom Hardy was in Inception, wasn't he? He plays Eames. So you're like, dude, he was doing loads more stuff before that, but it put him on the map. Yeah,
it made a lot of the actors in this film that are already good even more credible, I would say.
Yeah.
Like, made them more serious actors, even though they are serious. But as Drew reminded me, I should mention, I went to see this in the cinema very recently, and it's really weird because I saw the film, I think I've only seen it twice. I think I saw it when it first came out on DVD and maybe a couple of years later because it's quite a confusing film. But watching it in the cinema, that was a whole different experience. And I wasn't as connected to it as Drew was. I just remember it being quite a good film and a bit confusing. Watching the cinema, blown away by it. I think it's much better than my memory allowed me to remember. But Drew, you're obsessed with it. You've seen it how many times?
Probably about 27, maybe more.
I mean, that's insane. I watch comedies that amount of time because it's like easy going, not complex, long thrillers.
I like to fry my brain, I guess, fry my mind on psychological thrillers.
But before we go into detail then, we'll cover this later in the chat, but just as a quick tidbit, without going into detail, did your opinion of the ending flip-flop the 27 times that you watched it, or have you got a clear idea for the whole 27?
Only once I started doing a little bit more research into, I kind of went down a rabbit hole of all of these kind of like forums of people talking about what's what, and I can delve a little bit deeper into that. But before I had a kind of a deeper understanding of the totems and all these kind of things, I did switch a couple of times in not knowing because of the ambiguity of it. Is he still in the dream? Is he back home with his family? Yeah, sure.
Same. And I think that's the biggest talking point in the film. And I'm very clear on it now. I'm very clear from watching the film. Yeah. And when I did some Googling afterwards, I was like, that backs me. But then again, that's how politics works. You have an idea, someone else reaffirms it, and that becomes fact when it's not.
Yeah.
And the point is, it's ambiguous, so there is no fact, but there is the most likely ending, I think.
But also, Michael Caine came out in an interview and said, "I am based in reality." So he said, as soon as Cobb meets me, it's real. And I was like, spoiler alert.
Well, I'm glad he said it, because sometimes
I'm glad he said it like it was
ambiguous
great.
is good sometimes, but sometimes it's overly frustrating.
Yeah.
Like Tarantino's "What's in the Suitcase." That's fun because it doesn't matter.
Yeah, and
but the ending of Inception matters. It winds people up.
Yeah, it does.
I'm just going to open my drink before I continue, because it'll make a big noise.
Yeah, dude, no worries. I just remember being in the cinema and hearing people go, "Oh," when it spins and it does that final bit where it's just about to rock, and then you just hear people go, "Oh," and then it just cuts, and you're like, and I was just like, that's why I love you, Nolan. That is why I love you.
Yeah, he's got some special magic sauce, hasn't he?
Yeah, he does.
Well, I opened a can of water, just to be clear, we're not drinking.
Yeah. We're fresh and so clean.
So I would say, to begin this chat, we always go into the zeitgeist of the year, just to give you guys some context and to transport you to the relevant time in history. So this film, Inception, came out. Do you remember the year, Drew? Do you know off the top of your head? 2010. That's when I first moved to London as well. You were already there.
Yeah, I was already there. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was the year I moved.
Well, it was weird. I was working for Adam. Adam, even weirder than that, Adam was my boss. So Adam was my boss, and I was working in a kind of like call center / kind of tele sales thing for a company that's now gone bust, I think, called TixMe, helping people find somewhere in London. I can't remember now where, but I just remember I'd already been bitten by the Inception bug, because I kept watching the trailer on repeat. So whenever I wasn't answering calls or sending emails to clients and stuff, I had a page open and I just kept watching the trailer and going, and it's like the dream. What was that when they said the dream is the scene of the crime? And I was like, what? Like, come on, man.
Yeah, it's hard to describe to people. You do need to see it. It's not, if you haven't seen it, a lot of this chat hopefully will make sense, but it's confusing. But before we go into that, I'll deviate slightly. It's relevant for the year. So in the year 2010, the movies that were the big hits that year are as follows. And bizarrely, I watched one today. Karate Kid with Jackie Chan, that new one.
Yeah.
You know, the new one from 2010, the new, not new one, but new version.
Yeah.
I refuse to watch it because Karate Kid is important in my heart. And even though Jackie Chan is one of my favorite humans, I refused to watch. What's the kid called again?
Oh, it's Jaden, isn't it? It's Will Smith.
Jaden Smith. That's it. I refused to watch it because of that, and I just thought, no, it's not. But now I've finished watching all of Cobra Kai, which I love, and the new trailer for the new Karate Kid has come out with Daniel LaRusso, and it's got Jackie Chan. So they're merging the two titles. I thought, oh God, I'm going to have to watch this. So it came up on Netflix. So I thought I'll put that on. I was really surprised. I enjoyed it way more than I thought it was going to be really cheesy. I mean, there was cheese, but it was great. Yeah, it was
cheese. Halloumi.
It was all right. They really built the first hour. It was like a really long film, almost an hour and a half, almost as long as Inception. And the first hour was just lovely, just really nice story building. Then the second half was the kind of martial arty bits. But yeah, I won't go into detail. It was just.
I would just say though, I think Jaden Smith, to be fair to him, I think he's a good little actor, man. He was doing some good stuff because he was in The Pursuit of Happiness, and at that young age, he was doing a great job. I just wanted to put that in there, just.
Oh, definitely, yeah. That was a great film. To be fair, him with Will Smith, his dad. But Jackie Chan, seeing him do stuff even at his age, it's pure art. Him move is art.
Yeah.
But to move
Like
on,
violent ballet, isn't it?
Violent Ballet. Jacket off, jacket on. Put your jacket on the floor, pick your jacket up. um, the other films that came out in 2010 is another mind fuck by Leonardo DiCaprio, Shutter Island.
Oh yeah.
Same
Oh.
year. He was filming it, I think, in tandem. I think he'd finished one and did a little bit, or he came back in between at some point. I think there
Yeah,
was some
Scorsese,
crossover.
wasn't it? Scorsese. That's
Yeah.
mad as well, because they were saying that there's also echoes to those two films that we can go into later on in this episode as well.
Yeah. So the other films I'll just bosh through because there's some good ones, but we don't need to go in detail. True Grit, Salt with Angelina Jolie, The Other Guys, that comedy. One of my favorite films, Kick-Ass.
Yeah.
Black Swan was out that year as well.
Oh yeah.
127 Hours.
Mhm.
Shame James isn't here because Titanic 2 came out then. the shoddy sort of film. Iron Man 2 as well.
Mhm.
And the reboot, like Karate Kid, they rebooted A Nightmare on Elm Street that year as well. So it was a weird year for movie. There was a lot of terrible movies that year, to be honest. The main songs that were in the charts was Eminem and Rihanna, Love You the Way You Lie.
Oh yeah.
And if you're into metal, Dillinger Escape Plan, Farewell Mona Lisa, and Deftones Rocket Skates came out. And on the TV, the two big stuff I watched religiously was An Idiot Abroad with Carl Pilkington.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And Him and Her, that comedy.
Yeah.
Which I loved. In the news, and then we'll finish up, Prince William got engaged to Kate Middleton. And the miners in Chile were rescued.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Remember that? That was a big news story.
Yeah. That was a big deal.
There was an earthquake in Haiti and in Chile, like devastating ones, bigger than your average. The UK came out of a recession, and David Cameron became the Prime Minister. Double-edged sword, that one. And the big news that I remember is that Iceland's volcano erupted, caused that massive ash cloud that stopped everyone flying.
Yeah, because it was supposed to be dormant, right? And then, yeah.
But earthquakes, I mean, volcanoes explode every now and again. It doesn't cause any issues with traffic, but because everyone like from Europe cuts across Iceland to go to America, it's a main thoroughfare, and that smoke cloud, that ash cloud that would tear up airplanes, it would get in the, it would shred the metal and blow out all the turbines. Too dangerous. It cost the airlines £130 million in damages per day.
That's
Whoa.
That's almost as head trippy as Inception.
Yeah, it's insane. It's insane. So let's get properly into Inception.
Sorry to interrupt the show. Just a reminder to say we love and appreciate you all for listening to the podcast, whether it's on Spotify, Apple, or Amazon. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, follow, as this really helps us continue to progress and improve the content and keeps us making these fun episodes for you guys. Oh, we're also on these things called Instagram and TikTok. You can follow us there too, as we share short, funny reels on the reg that you can share with friends if you like. Now, back to the mayhem.
Drew, do you like to start? What's where do you bloody start with this film?
Yeah, actually, here's a funny story. I remember putting it on for my mum and dad to watch, and as soon as it became a dream within a dream within a dream, they were like, "Nah, I'm good," because it's 3 levels, and their brains couldn't quite cope with it already at that point. And Dad had gone out to get a beer and come back, and he was like, "Which world? Which dream are we in now?" And I was like, "Dad, you can't." It's like, I was like, "Guys, seriously, don't leave the room. Like, it won't make sense. If you leave the room, you will be absolutely screwed." And that's good advice now for anyone that's about to hopefully watch this film for the first time. Please make sure you've gone to the toilet beforehand don't leave the room or pause when you go to leave the room, because
even if you have watched it before, like me, I went in not blind. I remember the ending. I remember a bit at the beginning, and I remember a couple of the action sequences, and I remember the snow scenes that I think reminded me of James Bond. And then when I googled it, that was on Her Majesty's Secret Service is Nolan's favorite Bond film. So he kind of literally deliberately copied it, because he could have put that dream sequence anywhere in the world, in any scenario, any weather, and he chose a very obvious Bond scene.
Yeah, and skiing. Well, he's a huge Bond fan. I mean, he even said the other day that he quoted that he thought Timothy Dalton was his favorite Bond, in the sense that he was the closest to the books, which I thought was a really interesting point. And then, and then someone said that Inception is James Bond on acid, which I went, that's actually fair. That is a fair assumption.
Yeah, or a nightmare, or a dream. I mean, just for everyone, I'll read 2 sentences of the approximate synopsis, but I don't think it's going to help you.
Yeah, good luck.
So Dominic Cobb, he's only mentioned Dom twice by family members, but Leonardo DiCaprio, basically, Dom Cobb, is a thief with the rare ability to enter people's dreams and steal their secrets from their subconscious. His skill has made him a hot commodity in the world of corporate espionage, but has also cost him everything he loves. Cobb gets a chance at redemption when he is offered a seemingly impossible task, planting an idea into someone's mind to influence a huge industry. If he succeeds, it will be the perfect crime, but a dangerous enemy anticipates Cobb's every move.
That's
so. I guess, yeah. So, why have you watched it 27 times? That's the big question for me.
Okay,
Why?
well, one, I think it's just, the script is just phenomenal. Like the script, the characters, the way it's shot by Wally Pfizer, I think, who did a lot of
Pfizer.
Pfizer, yeah,
like the COVID jab. It's spelled
Pfizer.
Pfizer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Who did a lot of the Batmans as well, and then the cast is just epic in scale. Like, I mean, Nolan is always really good at that, and he brought Ken Watanabe from Batman Begins.
Yeah.
You know, he brought in Cillian Murphy, Tom Hardy, Ellen Page when she was Ellen Page as Ariadne, Joseph Gordon-Levitt as well. Like,
I love him in that. He's my favorite, I think, in that.
So good. His character's so interesting as Arthur.
He should be in more stuff. He's so good.
He's
Obviously,
so
he was in not Dark Knight, the third one.
Dark Knight Rises.
Dark Knight Rises. Yeah. But that Ken Watanabe. Watanabe. What did you say?
Watanabe.
Okay. Sato, isn't it? It's his name in the film.
Saito, yeah.
Yeah, like you said, the part was written for him, and Nolan said it was written for him because he didn't have enough screen time in Batman Begins as Ra's al Ghul. He was so good, but he didn't get enough screen time. I think they recorded more of Batman Begins, but they had to edit it down, and he liked him so much, he gave him a bigger part. So I love that.
He's brilliant, man. He's got so much charisma. And it's interesting because when the film starts, you think Saito's going to be a small part of it. But then, like you just said, that how Nolan wanted to bring more of him in, he then joins them. And then that's like, at one point they say he was called the tourist. So this is the other thing. The way they advertised this on the posters, they had, I think it was like 7 or 8 different posters of each character on feckin' bus shelters. And I was matching them up like it was Pokemon. I was like, right, you've got Mole. I can't remember what her one was, which it was it's not the wife. It's, I can't remember now. But you had Sato, which was the tourist. Then you had the forger, which was Eames. Then you had the architect,
Tom Hardy,
Ariadne. Yeah. Then you had
Mark.
The
Mark,
which was Cillian Murphy.
Murphy. And the Extractor was Leonardo DiCaprio.
Yeah, man. Yeah. But then also the concept of the world, the idea of being able to enter people's dreams. So on a sci-fi level, that's that's so cool and profound anyway. And the idea of extracting secrets and how they have to do it by building worlds within people's minds. And I remember Nolan was saying in an interview that he goes, how mad is it that when you fall asleep, you build worlds? Because you could be walking down a street that you've never seen before, but your mind has created it perfectly. And then even created people that will like pull out a wheelie bin or something and they'll wave to you and you're like, I've never seen these people before. Or maybe I have subconsciously and my brain has borrowed that information and turned them into a cameo or a character inside my head. And then I've got a mission, but the mission never makes sense inside your mind anyway.
It's good because, like you say, it is sci-fi, I suppose, but it's sneakily sci-fi because it doesn't feel obviously sci-fi. Like sci-fi, I don't think it's my favorite genre because it's a bit too far-fetched, but I like it when it's sci-fi in the real world, if that makes sense. Like Black Mirrors and stuff.
Well, it's grounded. That's because the director's done such a great job, and also with the story creating the rules of the world, where it feels believable, yet it's so complex and kind of so profound in the nature of the kind of the story narrative. But also, dude, there's even more kind of exciting secrets. You know the little Korean lad on the train in the intro. So
Oh yes, yeah. That helps at the beginning. Then he pretends he wasn't there. Yeah.
Oh, bro, there's a whole comic strip that's like I think 12 to 17 pages, and it's the prior intro to Inception.
Oh, okay, yeah, because that guy that fails them, that gets them caught at the beginning, I thought he was a good actor and he was good in it, and then he's only in it for that short scene at the beginning.
Yeah, man, where he says, "I didn't know I was going to rub his damn cheek on it." That guy.
Yeah. He's the architect, isn't he? The original architect. Yeah. And that's what I didn't get. I was like, why is there crowds of people burning the streets and coming for them? And then you realize it's because the subconscious has caught them and are attacking like white blood cells, which is a great phrase they use in the film. Man.
But that's what I mean. All the kind of analogies and the wordplay, it's quite poetic, actually, I'd say, Inception in a lot of the kind of dialogue and explanation of certain things.
Yeah. And I did follow it better this time. Like when I watched it, I know I was confused, and even though I got it, it probably was not too much for me. But like, I watched it. How old would we have been? 15 years ago, 25.
Yeah.
I would be like, it was good. It had good bits. I was probably more psyched about the action scenes. Whereas watching it now, a bit older, I was really fucking focusing, man. And I
really paying attention.
Nothing confused me. I understood everything this time.
I loved it. This is what I'm saying as well. Like, it's the exposition is so beautifully like explained, but it doesn't feel, because the world is so interesting and the characters are so like cool, and you want to hang out with them, and you feel like you're there with them. Like when they're in that room and they've all got their little chairs set up and they're like, how can we create a business into a strategy and all these kind of things. They're trying to think of a way to kind of get Fisher alone, and then they're going to take advantage of when his dad passes away. They're like, well, look, there's the funeral, so we'll use that as our little moment. And then they're like, well, we'll have to go on the plane. And then, because obviously Saito's rich, he kind of buys out the whole thing. I know I'm jumping like quite a lot, so we will go back. We'll make it just as confusing as Inception for the people listening. Why not? Just for fun. But it's that thing that I think people call it like a gang movie, in the sense that it's such an amazing ensemble that you can't wait to go on the journey with them all. I would say it's a little bit like a Mission Impossible, actually. When in Mission Impossible, all the different crew members come together, they've got a mission. Tom Cruise is like explaining everything to them, which is kind of like what Cobb's doing. Then they're all bringing in their own special moments, and then they have to go and
that's the thing. It's actually a generic film. If you take it nuts and bolts, it's basically Ocean's 11. It's basically any old standard heist movie, but with a twist and a different angle and a different perspective. And that. To be fair, like I think you mentioned a while back as well, there's only a certain number of types of films you can have. And then you can't have unique films. A unique film today is a format we've seen, but there's a twist, or they've turned it upside down, but it's still the same thing. It's still going A to B.
or they flip perspective, like you were saying the other, like when we talked briefly about a horror film, but it's from a different perspective. You're like, that's a different way of looking at it, which no one's delved into yet. So
yeah, back in the day, all horror films were by the view of the victim. Now we're seeing horror films by the bad guy, and we're seeing those.
So it's
it
all the
feels
different
new and fresh, but it's not. It's just the camera's in a different angle.
Yeah.
So you've got
Well,
empathy
it's
in
also,
a different way.
you can also see that it's massively inspired by The Matrix with a lot of kind of concepts, even though you could tell that he didn't want to have sunglasses, because there's only one bit where Dom is wearing the sunglasses and he immediately takes them off when he's sat down with Eames at that table. But you can see a lot of he's massively been inspired by Matrix and the idea of worlds within worlds.
Yeah, with The Matrix, I'd say that I noticed that as well. And there were scenes where it felt obvious inspiration.
Yeah.
Like the floating hallway scene.
Yeah.
And
100% when they dive on each other and they spin around, which is like the gun in the train
all
station.
that stuff where he's basically he's drugged everyone so they're unconscious, but it's the equivalent of Matrix pausing and going into slow motion, and the confusion that they're deliberately giving the audience of, is this reality or is this dream? You have to second guess a few scenes until it goes a bit further. And you go, right, we're there.
Yeah,
but that's the Matrix, isn't it? Are we in the Matrix or are we in the real life?
Yeah. And also when they're doing the simulations, when he's with Ariadne and they do all the different simulations, and that's similar, like when he's doing the stuff with Morpheus and he says, were you looking at me or looking at the girl in the red dress? And then he's like, freeze, look again. And it's like they're all in training modes.
Because Inception, when he takes the girl into the place, and she's the famous scene from it, making the buildings fold over.
Man. Yeah, that bit of the trailer folding on itself.
You're like, that's so cool, especially in the cinema, man. Seeing that, it's like, whoa, and then he undercuts it like the Matrix, like you just said about were you looking at the girl in the red dress? Yeah, Leonardo DiCaprio goes to Ellen Page. He goes, "How did you get here?" Well, we just walked from No, how literally did you get here? I don't know. In dreams, you don't know. You just are. Yeah. You're like, yeah, it's a good point. When you, literally, forgetting the film, when you dream, anything you remember, do you remember going, honk, right, I've arrived in my dream. Let's wander around.
Yeah. But even when it changes, so 1 minute you might be, ironically, in a cafeteria, but then next minute you're flying, you're in a plane, and you're like, what's going on? But your brain, the weirdest thing about dreams, which still blows my mind, is your brain doesn't go, why we're in a plane now when we were just in a cafe. Your brain can't find the sense of the continuity of where you are. It just adapts to the place where you're at.
It's just your imagination having a bit of fun. And
but dreams are actually
kind of controlling aspects, but
Well, bro, dreams go a lot deeper than that, though. If you look into the elements of dreams, your subconscious is trying to help you deal with things that you might not have dealt with, but it does it through such a surreal kind of lens that it helps you overcome certain things that you didn't deal with in that day, or it brings up certain problems and tries to kind of create some.
Then you can agonize over an issue you had that day, or find a solution. That's why I used to keep a pad by my bed where I'd write down notes, especially when it might be back when we were doing films, because I remember my brain was so excited by doing something creative that I would, these days I just pick my phone up and email myself or write a note.
Or write the notes. Yeah.
I used to have a pen and paper by my bed so that when I had thoughts, and if I woke up or I was semi-conscious, I'd jot down, we could do that film scene tomorrow. Why don't we try that angle or whatever, or this concept. And I used to do it for photography all the time and go, I need to shoot that person in this location. That'll look best and stuff like that. So yeah, dreams are really helpful that's why I don't sleep very well sometimes. I just, my brain doesn't shut off.
Yeah.
Me too.
Okay, but let's jump back, because what I think is very clever about the film. So this is I think this is pretty much spoilers anyway. for a long time when I first watched the film, I didn't know how Dom and Saito got back from, when you see like the film as a map and they show all the different levels and you're like, how the fuck do they get from the was it not the subconscious, but like they're trapped in that limbo stage and they have to get back to the plane.
Oh, at the very end. Yeah.
And there's
they've been there for decades. That's the point, haven't they? They've been there for a long time.
But there's all of the levels, and what's clever about the film is we witness all the other characters kind of kick their way all the way back to reality, right?
Yeah.
But Dom fails in every one of those attempts through the levels that we see. And we're thinking, how the fuck is he going to get back? And it only dawned on me when I watched Inception again, like last week, that we see them kill themselves. So the gun is a really important part. So when he says at the very intro where he says he had this, which he puts the kind of spinning top, and he says, and this, which is the gun. And then he's like, did you come here to kill me? And he's like, no, I came here to kind of like save you. But ironically, they're planting the seed for saying, I need to fucking kill us both to get back on the plane. But obviously at that point as an audience, we don't know where the hell they are and that they're actually on a plane. We're like, we think they've just been like, he's just been like swept onto a shore. And there's like a really old dude with like crazy white beard just going, I think I know you. And you're like, what? So it's a really clever intro.
That intro, I was like, when the intro hit, I didn't remember that intro. I don't remember the beginning. The start of Inception is water, waves, and then Leonardo DiCaprio washed up on the beach. And when someone goes to help him, they find a gun in his back and get curious. And when they pick him up, in the background, it's all kind of Chinese. And like, why is China doesn't have many places on the beach, especially not Chinesey type stuff. And
well, there's a Chinese castle on a cliff.
Yeah, it didn't make sense. I mean, obviously it must be real because they didn't build a Chinese thing for that. And Nolan, as we know, doesn't really make things.
But an interesting clip to an Easter egg, though, at the very end of the film, his son says, "We're building a house on the cliff," which is really interesting. That's how
his subconscious put it there, maybe.
Like, I don't know.
And that's by the way, Joseph Gordon-Levitt was called the Point Man. That was his one.
Yeah. Nice one.
And Leonardo DiCaprio's wife is called the Shade.
The Shade, that's what I thought, because he says that in his monologue. He says, "You were just a shade of the woman I knew, but my subconscious can only do so much."
That's Marion Cotillard, who is incredible in this film. She's pretty scary.
She is La Vivian Rose, and they use La Vivian Rose music every time for the music.
Ah, I see.
Cool.
Well, I was reading up about her as well. So Kate Winslet turned down the role of Leo's wife in this film.
What?
It would have been her third appearance with Leonardo DiCaprio in a row.
What? I don't know if it would have worked, man, to be honest, because I feel like it would have been like Titanic on the rocks, quite literally, you know?
Yeah. But it's weird because, I mean, obviously she's fantastic, but I think we would be too distracted as an audience by their personal connection a little bit too much.
Yeah. It kind of works in Revolutionary Road, like obviously just doing a teeny little jump off. For some reason, their kind of toxic relationship, I don't think of Titanic at all.
But that film's just so different because it's a character study of two people in a close proximity and their troubles. So you believe that they're good actors and they're friends, and then they're pulling off an amazing. It's great because of that connection. Whereas Inception, it would have been too distracting because that's not. Although it's in there, it's not the main part of the plot. It's a big factor, but they don't have a huge connection, really. It's meant to be a bit strange. I thought she did a great job because she is like a temptress, she's very seductive.
She's a woman. Yeah, very seductive and it's.
I think in real life, I think she is the woman that Brad Pitt cheated on with when he was with Angelina Jolie, cheated on her with her in the film. What film were they in? Was it Inglourious Bastards? No.
But I know what you mean. They were in a movie together. I know what you mean. Yeah. That's crazy. That's crazy.
I can't think of the film that she was in now.
I know the one you're talking about though. They're pretending to be German. They have to disguise themselves as Germans, and it's Marion Cotillard and Brad Pitt. Yeah, I remember it.
Yeah, that
And they've
was
got
really good.
they've
I
got
really
quite
enjoyed
a few,
that film.
got quite a few intimate
Uh,
scenes, to say the least.
Allied, it was called, which
Allied, yeah.
was really good. I really enjoyed that. But just
Um,
while we're here, um, another person that was meant to play another part is that James Franco, who was in 127
yeah, that's
Hours that
mad.
same year.
Yeah,
He was in talks to be Arthur, but Joseph Gordon-Levitt turned up to his audition in the style, in the same suit basically that he had in the film. Like he nailed the dress. He turned up looking
the part.
smart as shit,
Yeah.
and because prior to this, Joseph Gordon-Levitt wasn't in many big films. Again, he was like the Heath Ledger.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh, I've just connect. There's the other connection with not just him and Heath Ledger and Batman, but them two together were in 10 Things
Yeah,
I Hate About
10 Things
You.
I Hate About You. And people said
So
they look similar.
yeah, because I was going to say he's in a
Similar.
comedy role because like Third Rock from the Sun, 10 Things I Hate
Yeah,
About You,
yeah, yeah.
and then
In
all of a
Brick, he
sudden,
was in Brick as well.
yeah, and like Batman, well, Inception and Batman, like
Yeah. Well, again, Inception, I think when we talk about Inception put Hardy on the map, it put Joseph Gordon-Levitt on the map as well, really. Because,
100%.
well, this is the thing. Inception was such a kind of like explosive movie with such high spectacle. It grossed, I don't even know what it grossed, but it was such a huge number. Rumor has it that DiCaprio made the most money at the time from Inception, also based on the merchandise. So he actually
What
said,
merchandise for Inception? Spinning
so there
tops?
was I had the screenplay, so they had the special screenplay and all of the kind of making of in a book.
Oh,
And
okay.
they had the spinning top that loads of people bought it. Like people went nuts for that movie, man. They really did. But
Well,
it was like,
oh, sorry.
no, yeah. Yeah, it was just to have an Oscar winner as well be in a kind of action movie. Because at that point, I know that, you know, he'd done action films per se, but, you know, with that kind of level of gravitas with DiCaprio, it just added another level, I feel, to Inception, and the way that he brought such a kind of raw emotion to it, because, you know, the lost father struggling to get back to his kids, and then the guilt that kind of just, you know, intoxicates his body every time he thinks about what he did to his wife. And that is so clever as well, because the mission they have to do, which is Inception, the only reason he knows it works is because he did it, but it backfired because the seed was planted so deep, his wife couldn't.
Yeah, she doesn't believe she's ever in the real world.
Yeah,
And she's always thinking she's in a dream.
That is so fucking heartbreaking.
And as we know, to get out of your dream, you kill yourself and then you
Yeah.
wake up.
Yeah.
And this poor woman kept thinking she was in a dream. So at one point she wasn't, and still did. And the obvious happens.
Yeah. And that's so fucking powerful, that bit when they're at the hotel for their anniversary. And that's why that lift moment later on in the movie is so powerful, when you've got so many different levels in this film, because you've got the levels that they're trying to achieve from a subconscious level of taking over people's minds. But then you've got the actual levels they go through, either downwards or upwards. And then you've got his lift that has levels of memories.
So listeners, do you understand any of that last 60 seconds? If you watch the film, you do, you get it. But Jesus. Oh, to go back, like, before I forget, because you mentioned some good things there. But before I forget, yeah, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Inception 2010, Dark Knight Rises was 2012. So this is like you said, this is to put him on the map. And then Nolan clearly liked him enough to put him in Batman and make him Robin, basically.
But if you look, this is what I thought was a fascinating time in kind of like in the movies, really, because he used loads of Inception people for The Dark Knight Rises, because he had Marion Cotillard, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Hardy.
Tom Hardy, yeah.
Cross-merged his cast, and he's kind of doing it even now, like with the Odyssey and all that kind of stuff. He always has such epic casts, but he reworks with certain actors, and he brings them into other projects to kind of elevate the next project, and it's fucking amazing.
Well, that's it as well, because Leonardo DiCaprio, when he was brought on, no one would be at fault in thinking an actor is just an actor that turns up, does their job. Obviously, they do a bit of research. Some people don't. Some people just be fresh. Some people have to do research to really get into character. And then there's people like Leonardo DiCaprio, who, when came on board with the script with Nolan, obviously he was excited and he was into it, but he made changes himself. So
Yeah.
Leonardo DiCaprio spent a month working on the script with Nolan, because Nolan's so fixated on the plot and the timelines and the connections and all that. And DiCaprio thought, because initially Marion Cotillard, his wife, it wasn't going to be his wife, it was going to be a colleague or something like that, or
Okay.
one of the other guys in the team that
No ways.
died and got caught in the dream world. And he was like, I love it, but the story needs to be more relatable and more clear. So he finessed things to make. Imagine how confusing it would have been without Leonardo DiCaprio, because he's the one that made it more coherent.
Yeah.
And added a wife to have a more emotional connection. So we wouldn't have been as bothered. You know, it'd just be a man chasing after him in his dreams. Oh, scary. That would be it. But the fact it's a woman makes it more confusing. The fact it's a woman he knows and then you realize it's his wife, it makes it more delicious.
And the layers though. But then as you start to peel away like a massive Inception onion, the more layers you peel away, you then realize he's responsible for the fact that she's now his subconscious kind of demonic thing that's sabotaging every mission. Because there's a really powerful moment where Ariadne says, you are not responsible for her outcome. And then there's a really clever way, the way it's shot. You see DiCaprio just look up very briefly and look down. He doesn't answer that question. But it's not until later on in the film when he says, the reason I know Inception works is because I did it on her first. And she's like, wait, what are you telling me here? And he's like, I planted the seed in my own wife's head because she wasn't going to leave. But he's like, but once we came back to reality, you couldn't accept it as reality. And no matter what we did, you kept trying to take your own life. And then she became obviously suicidal, and she had her own plan of trying to get all of these counselors or kind of like psychotherapists to say that she was fine. And that he was a kind of in an abusive relationship, and he was like very violent. Hence why she created, she set up the whole, almost like a sting operation. She was incredibly, incredibly smart. She just smashed up the entire hotel.
Yeah, to blame him, so he had to kill himself as well.
Yeah, made a call. She tried to do everything to get him so close to the edge, and he says, "No, sweetheart, I'm not going to do that. We need to get back to our children." She's like, our children are waiting for us. He's like, no, they're at home. And it's like the fragmented reality of two worlds kind of colliding. Again, just it hits so hard, man, on the heartstrings.
And Leonardo DiCaprio just trying to be with his wife, but at the end he's just like, I have to give you up. We've already had a lifetime together.
Yeah,
we've been together for
50
like
years.
50 odd years, even though 5 minutes has passed in real life. But we've been together. We've had a life in a dream world. It's been the best time ever. Yeah. I've got to give you up rather than ruining my life just for a dream.
And that's also why the way that he slots in so many kind of clever plants and payoffs, but also these kind of echoes throughout this film with the train. So he says, I'm not a fan of trains at the very beginning when he pays everyone after the first mission. And he says, hey, he's not going to check every carriage. He's like, I don't like trains. And he gets off. And then you see they're on the train tracks when they're trying to kill themselves every time they get back. And then when they do the mission and it's raining and they're trying to get to the warehouse, fucking Mole just smashes through on a train, like a freight train comes straight through all the traffic. You're like, ah!
And again, mate, that scene in the cinema.
On the big screen.
Awesome.
When he's driving, and there's like a little moment, she flicks her jacket from all the rain. She just looks at him. He looks back at her and then boom, just hits the car. And you know that's going to be all real stunts because of Nolan. Like,
yeah, and all that scene is like just them asleep in the back of this van getting chased and shot at, and just them asleep, slow motion, swaying back and forth and floating. And I mean, there was a lot of errors in this film, by the way. The continuity was
a lot of
not brilliant. Like the car falling into the water kept going back up again.
Oh, did it?
Oh, every scene it was like a centimeter higher, going low, dropping
no.
down and stuff like that.
But
So
dude,
yeah, there was.
there's more moments like that though. You know when they talk about kicks, and he says a kick is like the idea of falling, right?
Yeah.
Loads of people have said this now that are big fans of Inception. When Fisher is in the snow dream, and there's because the van goes over the edge and smashes over the bridge, it creates an avalanche in the other level. The avalanche hits Fisher and Saito. They fall off a fucking cliff and roll. That's a kick. They technically would have woken up
Well, I don't
in the
know.
rain town.
A fall is not the same as a kick, because if you're on ground and falling, you're part of gravity. Do you know what I mean? You're falling. A kick is when you feel like you're going to fall. Like,
Well, no, but dude, they're falling off a cliff. It's the same, because later on, when he's
yeah,
he's on the snow and they kick the thing from under him and he falls off the house and he wakes up. So, and then
I know we're not. We're just joking about these things, but I don't think we can be that critical of a film that this. I mean,
No,
this,
I mean,
the silliness of the fact that he's having a cup of tea with Tom Hardy, you know, Leonardo and Tom Hardy, when he's trying to recruit him. And every time he leaves a building, there just happens to be a guy with a gun. Every time he goes to the end of a street, there happens to be a car to pick him up. It was so cliche and like, oh, that there was no actual, even though it was a good chase scene, there was no risk because everything just.
Oh no, come on, no, man, I disagree. That big kind of chase scene reminded me of the Bourne Ultimatum or something, man. When he's
but there wouldn't be a car ready to pick him up that would know exactly what end of what street he was going to run down to grab him.
But
I mean, that's a bit cliche.
I don't know. Well, I quite liked it. I mean, it's also clever, very clever editing as well. But I thought it's clever because Saito is potentially tracking the two of them. That's why he says, "I'm trying to lose a tail," and then he says, "Hey, get in the car." And he's like, "Wait a minute." He's like, "I thought you were trying to lose the tail." He went, "Different tail." So it's the idea, that's a bit of storytelling. We're being tailed by Saito, and that's how he knew to interact when I was getting chased by those guys.
Actually, yeah, when you look into more depth, maybe you're right on that one. I mean,
but one of the cool bits, though, is when he's getting crushed, though. That bit was really eerie and weird. You know, when he's like stuck in the corridor and he can't, and it feels like the walls are coming in. And
where's that? What bit's that?
You know when he's getting shot at in in
the chase scene in that yeah he does go through, and I bet you that is not
he can't get out, and you're like, wait, is that really happening, or is he just imagining it?
I think that's more.
That was so tense though, because
that was in the real life though.
It was real life, yeah. That's what I mean, yeah. But what's really clever about it is the way it builds the tension. Because we know they're like hot on his heels, man, and like he can't move, and they're gaining on him. So it's like it's a really great bit of like building tension. But I always thought.
Sorry to interject. My dog just farted and it honks.
Oh, dude! I always think when he's trying to order the coffee is really funny though. You know when he gets there and he tries to disguise himself, and the guy's like, "No." He's like, "I just want one coffee." He's like, "No, not for you. No, you've broken you've broken the queue." Yeah. He's like, no, just one coffee. And he keeps saying it loads. So he's like, and then the guys come in and there's that whole big fight sequence.
Oh, also in that scene, I noticed when he's chatting to Tom Hardy's just sitting there nibbling on all like seeds and nuts, and that's what he was doing in his interviews. Remember the interviews when in real life? Yeah, no, it wasn't with Killian. It was with Leonardo DiCaprio, and the interviewer was asking Leonardo DiCaprio and Tom Hardy questions about Inception, and Leo was like emphatically going, "Oh yeah, we love doing this scene," which was excited about it, and Tom Hardy was just like ignoring everyone, just eating his nuts, going,
"Wow."
I think he was not pissed off, but I think he'd resigned to the fact that he's not a big star when Leonardo DiCaprio's in the room, so I'll just let him answer everything. I'll just eat my nuts.
I mean, he's huge now, though, man. He's huge. And those two worked together in The Revenant. So
I think he was big then as well. It's a thing he didn't give a fuck. I think it was just a bad interview, basically.
Maybe.
But also the filming, especially when you brought out like the cinematographer Wally Pfizer as well. What was really interesting is that it was the same as The Dark Knight.
Mm-hmm.
That there was no for people that don't know films and don't know the behind the scenes. Drew does. I'll say this and I'll explain it. But there was no second unit, which basically means in a film, no matter how big or small, even a small independent indie film, will have a second unit, which means there'll be a second camera or a second crew that will follow a second part of a scene.
Yeah.
In this film and in Dark Knight, which is insane for the scope of it, there was no second unit. There was no further camera operators or second angles. It was all shot, and believe it or not, this is rare. The director shot it. Even when you talk about Scorsese and all these other, there's a cameraman and there's a director. They're not always the same thing. But Nolan shot a lot of the film, and Wally shot the other part of the film. Like,
So wait, is he shooting B-roll then? I think Nolan, wasn't he?
no, they were just both shooting it. So he would shoot some, and then Wally would shoot some, and he would have a particular idea because it's easier for him to just go, "I'll shoot this bit," and that Wally, can you take it and do right? You do this bit, I'll tell you what to do, type thing. So there would, like the way cinematographers and directors work, they don't. We spoke to Aaron Green on the show a while back. Talked to him about cinematography, and it's not. I asked him the question, does the director just tell you what to do? What do you have? What happens if you've got a better idea on the day or a different angle? And he goes, well, no, we talk about it to the nth degree before we shoot, so that when we start, we're on the same page.
Yeah.
So Nolan would have gone, I'm doing this. Wally, can you do that?
Yeah.
Basically.
That's awesome. That's stupid stuff. I didn't know that.
That's a feat, even, I mean, I know people like Stanley Kubrick was the main shooter on his films, and Tarantino gets really heavily involved. But even we always behind the scenes stuff. There's a lot of scenes where, because Quentin Tarantino, as you know, is so heavily involved in his film, it's his baby. Nothing gets past him. Every nuance is perfect. But even he's not holding the camera every time. He's quite a lot of the time hovering over the camera guy, going, "Yep, get that one," and he's dancing with the actors, and he's looking back, and he'll do it 20 times if it's not right, But he's not always got the camera, whereas Nolan actually has the camera a bit.
That is nuts.
Do you think it's worth mentioning the new news today? I mean, it'll be all new.
Yeah, about Tarantino. Yeah, go on then, dude. Drop it.
Yeah, it's just when I said Tarantino there.
Yeah, I was thinking that.
Yeah, so today, just to be honest with everyone, it's the 2nd of April. This should be coming out very end of April. So 4 weeks ago, there was news. Not everyone would have heard it, but Tarantino and Christopher Nolan are teaming up for Tarantino's 10th and final film. This is insane.
That is going to just change the game.
Well, we've talked for ages the fact that Nolan takes a lot of his time jump, stylization from Tarantino, even though they're completely different.
Yeah.
The concepts have got crossover.
But Tarantino was saying he's a huge fan of Nolan, because he was talking about how blown away he was by Dunkirk.
Yeah.
So it's like,
and of all the films that I remember him saying that he really liked, Dunkirk's fantastic, but Nolan definitely has surpassed that.
Yeah, man.
but it is still a great film. But the other news as well, Tarantino, not to go too much of a tangent, is he is actually scripted and written the sequel for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, but he's giving it to David Fincher to direct. And it's going to focus on Brad Pitt's character. Leonardo DiCaprio is going to pop in, but it's more on the Brad Pitt character,
the stunt guy. Yeah,
but to be fair, I think it was majority Brad Pitt in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Anyway, it was probably like 60-40.
I thought it was 50-50, man. But yeah, maybe.
Well, I depends if you work on screen time or importance of a role.
True.
Like his following his saying that Leonardo DiCaprio's scene with the little girl in the acting,
and then he's got all the acting world and then he's having to go at himself in the trailer and all that. That
was incredible. Yeah. Sorry, we've diverted.
We just went down a DiCaprio rabbit hole. But interestingly, briefly on that though, when you were talking about Shutter Island, people thought it was fascinating that in this 1 year, DiCaprio has played a struggling father of a suicidal wife and children that have gone missing, or he's trying to save them somehow, is very similar plot lines to Shutter Island and Inception, except Inception has a happier ending, let's be honest.
Well, should we go into the ending? I'm trying to think if there's any other.
Yeah, I was going to talk about sets briefly, and then we can. Yeah, I mean,
Go
yeah.
on. Go on.
Go
No,
when
you,
well, I
you've
was
probably
going
got
to.
about 15 minutes left, so
I was going to say what's amazing about some of the sets is the design and architecture behind them. Like you were saying about the hallway, for example, the spinning, that fight
the
sequence.
practical side of that, yeah.
That fight sequence in the hallway will blow people's minds. And Joseph Gordon-Levitt actually was on strings on wires, like he did all of that, and with the other people as well. And like when they had to do that fight sequence and the whole thing's moving around and they're all on wires, there's so many beautiful and profound moments in that film. Like when what was it? When they fail to have the gravity for some reason, I can't remember why that happens, and they fail to have the gravity. He has to wrap them all up and then bring them into the lift. But that bit blew my mind anyway. The fact that he's pulling, it's like the idea that in a dream, if you know what the dream is, you can control it fully, and you can use your imagination to do what you need. Because people were saying, why is the plugs on the main so long that he can wrap them up? And I was like, well, because it's a dream. And they have
Good point,
their imagination that they're able to do things. But it's also the same way they can just whip out a gun, and then he's like, you need to dream a little bigger, darling. And that's why he uses the bazooka, which again is an ad-libbed line that Tom Hardy was saying he was so honored that they went with that take.
I love it when he calls him darling.
Yeah,
it's so British and condescending.
Yeah, it's so funny. It's so funny. But their relationship's really funny, how he's always saying, oh God, he says, we're going to have to do a little bit better than might. He's like, everything in Inception is about being specific or whatever it is. No, what is it? I can't remember now. But he says, well, thank you for your contribution, Arthur. And it's like always knocking him down. Their relationship is so funny.
I like that bit. And I like how like Tom Hardy, we know him in what the majority of the roles he does, he's like a gruffy stender type guy. Yeah. And in this one, he's like, oh, thanks for the contribution, Arthur.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
But he's still a tough guy, but he comes across as quite posh. I think Christopher Nolan went, are you really could you sound more British? I'm like, I am British. Yeah. No, sound more British. Oh, you want to be the guy, Queen's British, do you? Oh, okay. Thank you very much, darling.
Still come the sandwiches, old boy.
I reckon that was the note. I reckon he got a note on that.
Yeah. But then I was going to say the bit where they're in the van and he says, let's run with the, oh God, I can't remember the name of the character he pretends to be, where he says, I'm going to tell him I'm part of his subconscious security. And I can't remember what name he calls himself now, but they go to that hotel. And you know, when he's talking to him about we're in a dream, and he says, be careful, because once you let people know you're in a dream, they start to become aware. So not only does their subconscious, start
looking.
The projection people start coming for him. But then when you start to see the set moves, and it's weird because the way it's shot, because it was kind of done as a kind of like a mid shot, you can't appreciate how mind blowing that set was. But you could see that it's on a level where they can tilt it naturally. So I can't remember what that's called, but it's like in theaters where it's like a raised platform essentially, on these kind of like, what's the word for it? But it's almost like a simulator, and it can turn. So and
the whole set, you mean? Yeah.
And Cillian Murphy and DiCaprio were talking about how crazy it is to act on sets that are literally sliding. So all of the stuff is sliding, and they're slightly at an angle, and then they're still trying to have this conversation and deliver all this dialogue without like falling off the set. But yeah, I imagine it came with a lot of kind of fun, cool challenges. And he did his famous thing again where he made loads of miniatures. So you know when they're blowing the crap out of different levels, they're miniature sets that he's just exploding like. And then obviously they do that really clever stuff, how they make it look like they match.
Well, that's cheaper, isn't it? That's the best way to do
100%,
it.
Yeah. Rather than blowing
I'm sure it's expensive getting the detail, but it's better than blowing up actual buildings.
Yeah, 100%. I've got a little idea. Well, there's a very powerful rumor that will absolutely twist your noggin. Do you remember a while back I talked about with Fight Club that the twist isn't what you think the twist is? So, you know, for example, Inception, everyone thinks that the job in Inception is to plant the seed in Fisher's mind to help Saito overcome such and such, right?
Yeah.
That's one potential thing. But Nolan is so much smarter than that, as we all know, right? The real job is creating a fake job for Cobb to go on so they can plant the seed in his mind to get him back to his children, which is the true arc. So, and then,
okay.
and check this out. If you watch Inception again, it's going to blow your mind when you look at it that way. So when he meets Saito at the beginning and they're using those lines and he plants the seed and he says, I can get you back to your children. He's like, no one can do that. He's like, just like Inception, right? So he's already planting the seed.
So Saito is in Leo's dreams and everything is in Leo's head. So the plane ride is a job that they've created for him to go on, and that is a fake life.
Well, no. So hang on. No. So all of the things you see are still legit, but the main mission, I think, because it's weird that Saito lets them in and says, I was letting you in for an audition, but you failed, right? But that just seems so kind of blasé, right? And then he's hanging out with them loads and he knows loads of stuff about them. My thing is the film has already started, right? Saito is part of the team and they've talked to him and said, listen, Cobb is essentially a drug addict. And DiCaprio even said this. He's so hooked on dreams that he can't get back to reality, that he's an addict, right? So like, we need to bring him out. We need to get him back to reality, which loads of people say to him all the way throughout the film. Come back to reality, Dom. All this kind of stuff, right? Everyone, the secret behind the film Inception is everyone is working together, almost like, what's it called when loads of people get around, like someone that's a drug addict or an alcoholic and they say, intervention. So it's a secret intervention with all of these characters that know the complex history of Dom and Mal, and they're all working collectively together to create a narrative that fits in to Dom's world, where he'd be like, okay, I'll agree to that because that sounds legit. It's the only way they get him because he's too smart. He joins them on that mission. And that's why when Ariadne says, the deeper we go into Fisher, the deeper we go into you. And if you think about it, he's correcting all his wrongs throughout those parts. Because also, when it ends in the airport, there's no resolution for Saito and Fisher. But the resolution is for him to go back, where he spins the top, he sees his children, but he doesn't care about the totem anymore. So they've achieved their objective to get him away from being dependent on
from
not
that drug.
believing on reality.
Yeah. Well, that's an even deeper explanation. I mean, the final conclusion is my conclusion is that of the debate is that is real life, and that top they just go for fucking ages. I've used them before. They can go for a couple of minutes.
Oh yeah, so it's wobbles.
I believe it would fall. It would fall. That is reality. But your explanation is profound.
Yeah, it makes you want to watch it again, though, right?
I think that makes sense, or at least Nolan has created the ability for that to be a potential, as opposed to it is correct or is wrong.
Well, yeah, but so you've almost got
ambiguousness is there's a conclusion, but there's still perceptions that could be perceived differently.
But it's
like that's mad
because you've got the surface level for the plot, but if you look, that it just kind of just fades out. But it's like he's the protagonist. It's his problem. It's his emotional journey. It's his wound. So all that, and that's why when you rewatch it again and you see the stuff with Saito, and he says, "Grow an old man filled with regret, waiting to die alone," which is almost like they used that as their script. And then later on, they say the same thing, where they're to get back to reality. He says, I knew someone like you, but it can't be. Now we're old men. And he goes, filled with regret. And he goes, oh, yes, waiting to die alone. And it's like the idea that he's remembering what they both said at the very beginning when they were creating their own little mission. And that's.
I like that a lot, man. That's enlightening. I am awake. I listened to something recent where they were talking about it, and they were saying that Well, the reason this film is so important and it's such an incredible film, and it remains still an incredible film that people revisit and label as one of the greats, is that because Nolan deliberately leaves gaps and leaves interpretation,
Mhm.
like the Pulp Fiction thing again.
Yeah,
Pulp
yeah,
Fiction will never leave anyone's brain because everyone will, even if Tarantino came out and said in the suitcase is X,
yeah,
people would still go, nah, he's just saying it. It's got to be this. It would be
yeah.
debated forever. And I think this film will be debated forever. And I think that's the beauty
That's what
of it.
makes it that 100%, dude.
And
100%.
what I listened to recently, they're talking about this film, and the point they made, which I really liked, was that in the noughties, from 2001 2009, nothing wrong with the films, but the blockbusters that came out in those years were quite explosions, boom, bang, simple A to B, easily followed, nothing exceptional happens, but fun. And I think people were crying out for something more cerebral, more intelligent, because
Mm.
people were treating the audiences like idiots. And I
Yeah.
think Nolan just went, no, the audience are more intelligent than they give them credit for. I'm not going to tell them. Yes, there'll be expositions because otherwise no one will understand anything. But
Yeah.
we're not going to overly do it. You're going to see this film, you're going to walk out and go, what?
Yeah.
And he wants that, and people responded to that. And this was a huge hit in the cinema, which a lot of films we've talked about before that are classics, from Jaws to Back to the Future to whatever, they were all flops when they first came out, and they're still regarded as one of the best films ever. Whereas this actually did well,
Yeah. But it's also like you revisit a lot of Nolan stuff because the more you watch it, the more you learn. So it's like a little jigsaw, and the pieces are all there in the movie, but you've got to put them together. The other thing, real quick, is that people have also said that Inception is also like the idea of making a film. So Christopher Nolan is Dom, and he's working so much he can't get back to his children, sorry. And his wife, ironically, is the producer, but it's like he doesn't have time for them because he's always working. And that's one of the lines, like, I'm always away. I'm away because I'm always working. Then you've got the idea that Eames is an actor. Then Arthur is the producer. You've got Ariadne as the set designer. Saito is the producer, as in like the bringing the money and the, a lot of the kind of connections. So it goes on. It's so clever.
It's like a film set, and all the other parts. They're all parts of the production company.
That's exactly it, dude.
I heard that as well, and I thought, and that's the thing with these type of films. Is it that we look into it so much that we can think up different reasons and make connections like, oh, maybe they thought of that? Or did Nolan go, right, how do I make a film? How about, I'm on the film set every day. How about if that camera guy was a killer, and this cinematographer was this, and the sound guy was that, and then it was snowball from there? Like, or is it just we're connecting that and other people are connecting that, or was that the idea, He'll probably never tell us.
He probably won't. But dude,
I respect him for it.
Mate, I was so obsessed with this film. I bought the screenplay, right? And I read the screenplay like relentlessly until it was on DVD. And the crazy thing was, I went to all the places, and this was the one time where Inception was sold out. I couldn't get a fucking copy of this film. And Sarah was so wonderful. She literally wrapped it up, and I came home. It wasn't like a birthday or anything. She just knew how crazy I was for this film. She used to call me an Inceptionist, which is hilarious. And on my bed, there was like a little present wrapped, and I unwrapped it, and it was Inception. She'd got a copy of it. It was like the Willy Wonka golden ticket, and I was like, oh my God. She was just amazing. Like, it was so sweet of her that she just knew. She could see my struggles were real because I couldn't get a copy of this film. So,
talking of sweet, that's a lovely cat you've got on your lap. Just gave you a little headbutt on the chin.
Yeah, this is Little Pie. This is Macy.
Hi, Macy. Anyway, that's the spoiler review. I think we probably could talk another hour on it, but we better not.
Yeah. Maybe this could be part one of spoiler of Inception. We have 27 parts.
I think all Nolan films deserve a lot more long-winded chat because it's there's so much in them. They're not basic films.
Dude,
but yeah, thanks for listening, guys. I I can't remember which way I'm putting this out. I think if you haven't listened last week will be a Nolan deep dive, or it might be next week. But I think it was last week.
That
Pretty
sounds like
sure it's last week. Yeah, it was last week, but we're talking about this week. But it was actually filmed. We actually recorded it multiple weeks ago, and it's coming out a month later, which is actually currently 3 weeks in the future. But when you're listening to this, it's 1 week in the past. That's the truth. So enjoy getting your head around that one.
Kev just became Nolan.
Bye-bye.
This has been Rage Whale. Thanks for hanging out with us. We hope you had a whale of a time. Oh, wait! Before you go and enjoy the rest of your day, we would really appreciate if you had a spare 5 seconds, a follow and a 5-star rating. Also, don't forget to follow us on our socials on Instagram and TikTok, where we have updates, movie-related content, and funny clips from the show. Please tell all your friends. Thanks for hanging out with us till the very end. Have a great rest of your day.